It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Anime Movie Podcast. We are in the middle of Ghibli June.
Mm-hmm.
We might be at the end of Ghibli June now. I think we're at the end of Ghibli June.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I want to fact check the shit out of you today. We're at the end of Ghibli June, Kat.
And today we are reviewing and discussing Princess Mononoke. I'm Kat.
I'm Joe.
And today we have a very special guest who is my sister, Tierney.
Yeah.
Hello.
Now,
Clap for your sister. We need some kind of applause. Oh, wait, we do have one. It's this one, right? Yeah, there it is. Damn it, I forgot about that.
Do like the morning radio, like sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of pre-recorded ones, which only we can hear. You can't hear it. It doesn't send it through to you.
There was an applause for you, though.
Yeah, we put it in.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh my God, thank you.
Now, Tierney, I don't know if you remember this, but you are the one who showed me this film.
I don't remember that. Good going, me.
It must have been like 1999, maybe 2000.
Yeah.
So I was like 10. And to date, that was the most violent film I'd ever seen. And I remember you held it over my head for a little while because you were like, you can't watch it. It's too violent. You can watch it when you're older. And I was like, am I older yet? And like 3 weeks later, you're like, you're old enough now. And I remember it on our old TV in the living room back in the day, square TV and just limbs flying.
Heads flying.
I have notes about the limbs, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I took some notes on the limbs. It was more like the Black Knight from Monty Python than anything.
Yes.
Like watching it now, the decapitations and so forth, like they're so comical. Like there's no like visceral spray. It's just yeah. Well, no, there goes both his arms, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. It's a clean shot. Good job. Not even bleeding.
Yeah.
Self-cauterizing wounds.
There's one time where one of our protagonists, Ashitaka, he shoots a bow and arrow and it just launches a guy's head like straight up into the air. It's like, what?
Yeah, just an arrow.
There's no noise that comes along with that. No, like even just like the guy's head just flies right into the air like 15 feet.
And then the guy on the horse next to him just slowly turns around and walks away. It's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good, man.
And fun fact, so Tierney, you were the one that showed Kat this movie for the first time. And Kat was the first person to show me this movie.
That's right.
This was
We're
the first...
just popping cherries left and
I
right.
know.
Yeah, that's right. It's a cherry popping triangle, triforce of cherry popping. So Tierney, could you just give us a brief background for our listeners about your relationship to anime and Ghibli and this film?
Sure. Well, I am your older but shorter sister, and my relationship to this film currently is that I am pursuing my PhD in visual cultural studies at University of Rochester. My research focuses on immersive interactive art installations, and there's a Japanese component to that called Team Lab, and they have a lot of artwork that's very heavily based in Shinto. So when I was registering for classes this semester, I went for this Miyazaki class because his work is also so heavily based in that. So right now I'm writing a paper that is literally just about the Shishigami, the animation sequence where the Shishigami steps and the flowers bloom and then they die, and how that relates to a Team Lab piece.
And the Shishigami is the forest spirit, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the deer god. But literally just that loop and how that relates to Shinto concepts of nature and impermanence and how that shows up in these Team Lab works. But that is all to say, when I was 13, I was a big old otaku. Back in the day when your options were like the Deke dub of Sailor Moon or Toonami, where we had like Speed Racer and Voltron and stuff like that. or you went to comic book stores that sold bootleg VHS, which was how I saw most of it.
I mean, and you got like fan subs and things.
Yep. That was how you had to get it. So yeah, just a big old nerd. I saw Mononoke when Disney released it. I think they may have done it at the El Capitan Theater. I don't remember, but saw the English dub. Was a big X-Files fan at the time too. So Gillian Anderson was a big plus. So that's to say, I took that sort of teenage fandom and rediscovered it, carried it through to what I am doing now.
This is your favorite Miyazaki or Ghibli movie, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, hands down, definitely my favorite.
We should have you on the pod to talk about it.
It makes sense. It's very sensible.
It's interesting that you mentioned Speed Racer and Voltron because are you familiar with Fred Patton?
No.
He is a big manga and anime writer, and one of the only sort of like big books with lots of articles about anime and manga is one that he wrote. And I was reading up about some stuff that he'd written about Princess Mononoke. Like, I'll just read this little bit from this article. So Disney implies that Princess Mononoke is too good to be anime, while the Cartoon Network complains that anime is for audiences who only want mindless violence and do not care about intelligent stories or characterizations. Their answer to having it pointed out that they show Speed Racer and Voltron is to imply, but these are good programs, therefore they can't be anime. And that was the attitude
I think I've read something similar. So we may have read a chapter out of one of his books.
Okay, probably.
That all sounds very familiar.
So he's basically saying that this movie's too good to be considered an anime because anime is usually stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of implies what the attitude about anime was at the time.
And this anime erasure is what it is.
And basically,
there's a lot of good 80s anime.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but 1998 was when Disney picked up Kiki's Delivery Service, and that was the first Ghibli film that Disney distributed. And then the second one was Princess Mononoke. So people were asking why it was that they were distributing those films, but not distributing, earlier films, not just being like Nazca, The Valley of the Wind.
So Nazca did have an earlier release called Warriors of the Wind, which is apparently terrible. And
really?
Yeah, we talked about that. I guess we watched the Disney version, but there was an original dub in the 80s that was just edited to shit. So like Nazca didn't even really seem like the main character. And
weird.
Apparently it's just absolute garbage.
Was Miyazaki pissed off about that?
Oh, I wouldn't know.
I have a feeling he was.
Yeah, because I know that they were trying to edit this movie down because it's like 2 hours and 14 minutes. And interestingly enough, the person who got the rights was Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
And he wanted to cut it down, and Miyazaki and his producer...
Run, son! Run while you still can!
But apparently they sent him a katana with the words "no cuts" engraved in it when he was trying to cut that movie down.
Yeah, originally the story was that it was Miyazaki that sent the katana, but it was actually his producer. And apparently when he was asked about it, this is a translation of an interview with him, Miyazaki says, actually, my producer did that. Although I did go to New York and meet this man, this Harvey Weinstein, and I was bombarded with this aggressive attack, all these demands for cuts. And then he smiles. I defeated him.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right. So
I like that story.
Yeah.
We're in the non-spoilery territory. I don't know how much we can talk about that's not spoilery aside from a little...
How do you have spoilers on a movie that's old enough to drink?
All right, Tierney. Okay. Some people haven't seen it.
Well, I
didn't see it until last year.
Well, I think
like
we
a you
can...
problem.
I think we can do a little non-spoiler synopsis. We can also talk about music. We can also talk about animation. Apparently, this film was like 20 years in the making as far as the story idea for Miyazaki went. And then it was a 3-year production, which was pretty long. And they were under some pretty big time constraints. So this actually relied heavily on computer animation.
This did?
which I think
Huh.
is blended in amazingly well because it's
Yeah,
not
it's almost
very
a little
obvious.
distracting and Spirited Away. They do
Yeah.
a way better job, I think, in Mononoke.
The animation in this, I feel like, is pretty rad. Like, I didn't know that it was a lot of computer animated stuff. I know that it has like over 500 colors were used in it, which is a lot. Like, I know that
we were really surprised when there were 381.
yeah, for Castle in the Sky,
Yeah.
this one trumps that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, it said something like Miyazaki went through and redid a lot of the cells because he wasn't happy with them. And there's 144,000 animation cells, and he redid 80,000 of those.
Oh my God. And I think this is one of the films that he came back out of retirement to do. He did that a couple of times, or maybe this was going to be his last
Yeah,
one.
this was
Do you
going to
remember,
be
Tierney?
this was going to be his last
Okay.
one.
And so
But
Yeah, I mean,
came-
he's had so many last ones like this, and then it was Spirited Away, and then
I think this was his first last one, right?
yeah,
and then he came
then
out of retirement to
Ponyo.
do Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle
Yeah.
and Ponyo. Yeah.
well, wasn't Howl's
Yeah, and then
supposed to be
The Wind Rises was definitely the last, and now he's doing one that's coming out in like 2022.
Oh yeah. I heard
he
about
is
that.
doing a new one.
But yeah, the original, I may even have images of it here, but the original version of this was almost a little bit more Beauty and the Beast, and the Mononoke kind of looked like Totoro. It was a little weird.
Oh
Mm.
no.
I'll see if I can. I'll see if I have it in this book, and then I'll put it up so the entire audience can hear the original image.
Yeah, I was gonna say, great. Like, glad we're doing this.
Great
in a-
visual part of the audio. Maybe we'll make a YouTube clip out of this. Hope. All right, let's do
Sorry.
spoiler-free synopsis. I'll just read it from somewhere. Is that okay?
Why don't you read it from 500 Essential Anime Movies: The Ultimate Guide by Helen McCarthy?
Okay, well, this is much longer than.
There's some kind of facts and things at the end, so it's not all synopsis.
All right, cool. Here we go. Ashitaka, prince of a tribe living in the remote eastern wilds of Japan, is wounded by a rampaging boar god, driven mad by an iron ball embedded in its flesh. He sets out to find where the strange object came from. If he cannot find some magic to heal him, he will die of his wound. Traveling west, he comes to a settlement of ironworkers who are destroying the forest to make their living, and also targets for the local feudal lord. The forest creatures are fighting back, led by wolf goddess Moro and her adopted daughter San, a human abandoned as a baby and raised by wolves. San is filled with hatred for humans who rejected her and are now destroying her adopted home and family. Ashitaka, who is free of hate and resentment despite his injury, is drawn to this wild, wounded girl.
He does stay impressively neutral throughout a lot of this film. I mean, he's passionate, but everybody's like, take a side. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you did that thing. You must be on their side. And he's like, no.
Well, yeah, I feel like Ashitaka is very much like peacekeeper type of guy where he's like, hey, let's try and live in harmony together. But, we got the two extremes of like the iron miners, iron makers or whatever who want to just mine in the forest and like bulldoze down a bunch of trees. And then we got San and the wolf spirits and animal spirits who loathe humans.
And then you have this like D story, which is Lord Asano and his samurai. And I'm like,
Yeah, that felt like it was not very, to me, I felt like that story point wasn't very well elucidated or elaborated on.
like integrated? Or
Yeah.
like you wanted more or less?
Well, it just seemed like it was there and it wasn't fully fleshed out.
Yeah.
I think that the D storyline probably feels a little out of nowhere because I don't think that Disney did a great job of providing historical context, which is actually important
Okay.
to this film. So Ashitaka comes from an actual tribe that existed in Japan called the Emishi. And this was sort of during a time when there was consolidation. And so feudalistic Japan and the samurai are sort of a new thing. And you have these other tribes and groups that existed that the emperor's trying to like centralize power and take them over. At the same time, you have this transition from sort of a more supernatural, mystical relationship between humans and forests. So in a broad sense, this is a movie that's very much about the transition between these two periods.
Yeah.
You're not going to know unless Disney is explicitly at the beginning, like, okay, everybody, here's what's happening. This is a period of transition, and here are all the things that create tension.
Yeah, and this time watching it, I got the sense that it felt like an origin myth. It felt like a legend explaining why the relationship between animals and people are strained the way it is, or why, sort of the relationship between people in the forest, is strained. And it's like, oh, well, back at a time, things were different, and this is how it escalated, and this is what happened. I think this is an uncharacteristically pessimistic film for Miyazaki.
Yeah, I mean, I know he had other points in his career where he was feeling pessimistic. He talked a lot about that when he did The Wind Rises, about how he was like, I just can't do this fantasy stuff anymore because I hate everything. And then he did a film about the guy who invented the zero. Just read the room. Oh my God. I have strong feelings about that movie. Anyway.
We'll have to bring you back for The Wind Rises.
Oh God, you're just going to hear me going on the whole time about how wildly inappropriate it was, and tone deaf. So yeah, actually, I have one of the notes I have that I took was I have a major beef with a lot of the mistranslations in this, and this is coming from somebody whose grasp of Japanese is poor.
Yeah, and to your point, one of the things that I read about this movie is like it's not a direct translation; it is a very like loose translation to make it like more colloquial for American audiences, but apparently like it's very kind of far off in terms of like
so paternalistic.
Yeah, between the dub and the sub. So I could see how that would put a damper on the viewing experience, especially if you have all of this knowledge in the sub versus watching the dub, which it could completely change the movie.
Disney in particular has a problem, and I think this is true of all translated animes. There's a major issue with the Christianization, but I do think that they're doing anime fans a disservice.
Yeah. But I will say, I know that you didn't watch the dub, right, Tierney?
I have not seen it since I was a kid.
Okay, yeah.
But like I said, Gillian Anderson, we have no choice but to stan.
Yeah.
As the kids say.
I enjoyed the dub. I thought that they did a good job with it. Like usually there's some characters that like annoy me or their voices are grating, but I felt like this dub was like did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, we had Billy Bob Thornton, Claire Danes, Jada Pinkett Smith,
Billy Crudup.
And yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I thought Ashitaka sometimes sounded
I
a
noticed
little
that you
flat.
skipped Gillian Anderson.
Because you brought her up twice already. Everybody knows Gillian Anderson's in this film because of you. Okay. More to your point, though, Tierney, about dubs versus subs. This was when Disney got the rights to this, they were just going to release it with the dub, and it caused such an outrage that they actually delayed the release so that they could include the sub on the... I guess, was it DVD back then? I don't know. Yeah, like 2003. I think DVDs were the thing back then. I have no concept of time anymore.
Yeah, I think that would have been. But yeah, I probably should sit and watch the dub so I get a better sense of like what's different between that and the subtitle version. I'm disappointed that even the subtitle version does like a pretty poor job of communicating certain things. But that's why the fan subs I watched as a kid were like, I mean, you remember, Catherine, it would be like pages and pages and pages of title cards being like, this thing is related to this. Like the cultural notes for some episodes of literally Sailor Moon would be like, you're just sitting there for like 5 minutes reading.
Yeah.
Like the translator's notes on certain things. I think that now we've got sort of as anime has become sort of Japan's main export culturally to the rest of the world, I think that there maybe is some better cultural fluency than there used to be. And I think you can look at movies like Spirited Away, like that's kind of a gamble because it's so heavily based in culture that maybe movies like that have helped make certain aspects of the culture a little bit more understandable. And maybe now they could be a little bit more precise with their translations. There's one in particular I'd like to whine about if I could.
Sure.
So we were talking about with Spirited Away, we were talking about yokai, and yokai and Mononoke are basically like synonyms. They're interchangeable. In this movie, I again don't know how they do it in the dub, but in the sub, they refer to the beast that attacks the Amishi village where Ashitaka lives as like a demon god. But that's not actually accurate. They were specifically referred to him as a tatarigami, which is a kind of yokai. It's a very specific thing. It'd be a little bit like seeing a vampire and being like, it's a big supernatural thing when it's like, no, like it means something, it's specific. So tatarigami in particular, they're basically revenge spirits. They're often like something important, like a noble who died in agony. And so it's closer to sort of like it's like a spirit of vengeance. Like it's almost closer to an angry ghost, like a
possession
Sadako,
type thing.
or excuse me, Sadako Yamamura from Ringu. I don't remember what her name is in The Ring, but it's closer to that. It's like this vengeful spirit who's just raining chaos and destruction. And if you'll recall early on in the film when Ashitaka first meets the monk that's played by Billy Bob Thornton, whose name escapes me.
It's like Chigo.
Jigo.
Is it
Yeah,
Chigo?
yeah, or like something like that. And they're sort of camping out near this village, and it's implied that basically a natural disaster hit this village. And if you know that the boar god was a tatarigami, then you're like, oh, this is how that happened.
Oh, the boar god is what hit that village.
Right. But that's something that you're like, oh, okay, that's because you have this like background knowledge that tatarigami caused like wide strife and natural disasters, and things like that. And that it's not like, one of the things that bothered me was that they talked about how like, oh, it was like the bullet that poisoned him, and that definitely plays into Miyazaki's pacifism, but it doesn't talk about, or I should say, it doesn't really talk about sort of like the sense of like mourning and grief and revenge and extreme anger that sort of plays more into the idea of like the dying gods. And so I feel like you miss a lot with, I mean, like, just calling him a demon god is not, because you miss out on all that other information.
I think they imply that it's a boar god that has become demonic, right? Because of the danger noodles that appear.
Yeah.
I was going to say, for me, I felt like...
But demonic is Christianization!
That's accurate.
It is!
To me, I felt like it conveyed that it was a god and it was like a good god, but I felt like it was kind of conveying like he got possessed by some kind of revenge spirit. Not necessarily. They didn't specifically state what, I forget what you called it, Tierney. What is it called?
Tatarigami.
I'm not going to remember that, but for everyone,
here, let me put it in the chat. You can put it in the chat.
Tatarigami. But I kind of got that impression, even when the later, when there's other instances of like that could be what's happening. It's like their soul and well, maybe that's kind of Christianity too, but their essence was corrupted and overtaken by this like demonic type thing, like I don't know. I
really love the idea in Shinto that kind of has this big gray area where there's not a lot of like, this is always good and this is always bad. It seems like there's always a way for something to become corrupt and then to kind of go towards that sort of darker side. But there's this really interesting kind of ambivalence, which I like.
Mononoke is a buffet of gray.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's a cornucopia of gray.
Let's get into spoilers.
Yeah, let's get into some spoilery stuff.
They wouldn't spoil this, right? Oh, God, you can't spoil this. Right? Don't spoil
Spoiler talk, spoiler talk, anime movie podcast spoiler talk.
Yeah, okay, so I don't know, what do we consider spoilers? Like decapitations
the
of
rest
gods?
of the movie.
You can literally talk about anything you want here.
Yeah.
Cool. I noticed we didn't even talk about Lady Eboshi.
No, we haven't mentioned Lady Eboshi yet.
One of the only Studio Ghibli characters to have visible lips.
Oh yeah.
Didn't Marco's girlfriend in Porco Rosso
Yeah, she
have
had lips.
lipstick?
She had clear lipsticky lips.
Yeah, so Lady Eboshi is great, and she's, I think, one of the examples of like gray area in this movie, because like I guess she's kind of supposed to be a villain, but then it's like, no, she's got really specific aims for leadership. She doesn't, she's protecting all these women and lepers, from these like imperial forces.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, she's just like, I don't clear cut the forest for all I fucking care. Like,
do you think if Lady Eboshi was a real person today, that she'd be like a chuggy girl boss, or just a complete badass?
I think she'd be like a person that everyone thought was a girl boss and like got behind her, and then they dig into her past and they cancel her. Lady Eboshi would definitely get canceled.
Yeah, and I think the biggest gray area for her has to do with she wants to create advancement and wealth, and she is taking in lepers, and she's taking in women from brothels, who are honestly some of the only comedy relief of this film. That's
there's
intentional
not much levity.
comedy relief. Yeah.
I wondered that about the flying limbs, because you're just like, it's so weird that you're just like, is this supposed to be a funny part? I'm not sure.
I think some of that is supposed to show that when Ashitaka got infected with this sort of, what would you say instead of demonic to make this non-Christianized?
Well, I think he said
Anger.
it was like cursed.
It's like
I'm looking for an adjective for cursed.
If you think about like an angry ghost, it would be like vitriol is kind of the way I would think about it, or like vengeance, pain.
By his vengeance curse?
I think Danger Noodles might be the best one. Danger Noodles with an asterisk that has all of those emotions attached to it.
Apparently when I took it down as a note, I wrote them down as hate noodles, not Danger Noodles.
No, actually Hate Noodles works. Because
all right,
Hate Noodles works.
I think it's partly showing the superhuman strength that he's gained from the hate noodles, that can make it so that when he launches an arrow, it literally takes somebody's head off, and when he just like grazes somebody with a sword, both their arms fall off.
Yeah, because when he does do it, the people that are around are like, what kind of arrows is he shooting?
Yeah.
Oh, the part where I assume he seems angry, at least frustrated. The scene where San tries to attack Katara, which is the name for Irontown, I think. But he's separating San and Lady Eboshi, and on his right arm that's been infected, like he's got this incredible strength, but also the hate noodles are like, yeah. Terrified.
I kind of love that scene.
And it's interesting that that's when they manifest.
Yeah,
in that way
when he becomes angry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when he's angry about their. He was angry about this conflict.
I love that he's also so enraged in that scene. He's like separating a fight that's breaking out, and he's giving a speech about like, stop being so angry. This is what happens when people get angry.
Meanwhile, his right arm's like, blah!
Yeah, his right arm is it's like got fucking. It's like Venom from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool when he just gives one punch to the gut each, and then is like, can somebody take Lady Eboshi off my hands? And then, all right, I've got San, we're good, I'm gonna go.
I'm trying to figure out like when he hits that's just like instant unconsciousness, but like you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like, did he break someone's sternum? Like,
did he break some ribs?
Yeah.
I think I think Lady Eboshi is a cool character, and I think that it's an interesting choice to make her a woman as well, because
she's like gender bending, like whoa.
Yeah.
The top knot hairstyle, the clothes she wears, it's like total gender bending. And then she just polishes it off with a nice lipstick and
What do
good
they
look.
call her in the Japanese version? Because they say Milady in.
Eboshi-sama.
Okay, yeah.
See, I really like Lady Eboshi too because I feel like this movie is the most nuanced of Miyazaki's movies when it comes to the environment. Where that's why it's kind of surprising to me that he characterized Eboshi like this, because you can see she has goals and she's not necessarily like a villain per se, and she has like heroic qualities and admirable qualities, but usually Miyazaki, at least in my mind, is like, if anybody like steps on a leaf, you're the fucking worst person in the world, especially when it comes to humans and technology. So that's why I like the message of this movie. I feel like is more, we need to work together, we need to coexist in this, whereas I feel like some of the other movies is like, people are just destroying all this environment and you're all trash and you need to fucking stop.
Or even a melancholy acceptance that things die
Yeah.
and things
Yeah.
change.
I think that's very
there's
true.
There's this surprising nihilist undercurrent in this film, I
Oh,
feel
for
like.
sure. And I think that
Um,
speaks loudest in the ending of this movie.
Yeah,
Does Japan have wild wolves?
they used to. So I think that the wolves that were in the northern area in Hokkaido were effectively hunted to extinction and killed with strychnine as Western farming practices came to be in use and Western livestock
strychnine
practices came to be in
poisoning.
use, and there was they basically killed them off in order to protect livestock for predators, so they're extinct. And then there was another one, which I think is just called a Japanese wolf, that existed further south, who I believe were also hunted to extinction. And I think, like the last one was killed like 1905 or something like that.
Right.
So,
I mean, wolves,
yeah.
not a common species throughout most of Asia.
Yeah, I guess they're Siberian ones.
Yeah,
of
and
course,
I think
Siberian.
I was gonna say maybe
Yeah, and I
more
think
on
what I
like
was reading.
the Asian side of Russia, probably.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not in. I mean, I bet Mongolia. I think some of the colder Asian countries, but not.
Yeah.
Maybe not as many of
I
the
mean,
hotter
I don't
ones.
know. Are there wolves in Bali?
No. There are deer in one part of the island. It's very weird. In the northwestern part, it's called Menjongan, which means deer, and there's a bunch of deer there, and they're weird. They're very small, but anyway.
I got bit in the crotch by a deer when I was in Nara.
Really?
So deer are also sacred within Shinto Buddhism, and Nara was the seat of power of Japan for, I forget, not long, but they built a massive temple that has like a 5-story high Buddha, Todaiji, I think is what it's called. And it's crazy. There were people there cleaning it when we saw it, and basically someone's standing on the Buddha's hand, and he's the same height as one of his fingers.
Oh,
I mean, this thing is massive. But the complex that it sits on is full of deer because they're considered to be these sacred animals, but they're somewhat tame. They will give you little rice crackers to feed them, but they know that you keep rice crackers in your pockets and they will go looking for them. And I was wearing a dress that I was very pleased had pockets until the deer went for the rice cracker that was not in my pocket.
Oh, no.
And it bit me in the crotch.
I think this segues nicely into talking about the deer god. What can you tell us
The
about
Shishigami.
the Shishigami?
Has never bitten me in the crotch.
Sure, I believe it.
God. That's a face that
You'd be
could,
so lucky.
that would.
The Shishigami, I mean, he looks kind of doofy to me.
He does look a bit dopey.
Because I tried to like make the same face that it's making, and I think I nailed it.
Why don't you?
That is to say that I look dopey.
Why don't you do it right now so our audience
All right,
can
I'm
hear
going to do
the
it
face?
for Tierney. I'm going to do it for Tierney. Tierney, you let the audience know if this is accurate. All right. This is when the Shishigami is drinking water, and then he just looks up because San sees it. Okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
Fucking
Pretty
nailed
much.
it.
Yeah, so about the Shishigami. Yeah, deer are sacred, especially in Nara. They're viewed effectively as messengers for the gods. So when I was thinking about that initial scene where Ashitaka sees the deer god, he's moving through the forest with other deer, and it's sort of like, oh, okay, this is just like the shape he is taking, as opposed to actually being a deer, and like the deer he's moving with are sort of they're messengers. So it makes sense for his presence. But Miyazaki in Spirited Away, and especially in this film, sort of borrows but makes things very much his own. So the Shishigami isn't necessarily tied to any specific thing. It's something that he's appropriated all of these old legends, these cultural references, and he's made it into his own new thing. The same with the Nightwalker, which is called the Dairarabochi in the Japanese version. Dairarabochi is a yokai that's basically a giant, and I think they're supposed to be like kind of stupid and just like chill out and like eat mountains or something. They're not these like harbingers of death.
But yokai in general are monsters, right?
What's that?
But yokai in general are kind of monsters.
Yeah, like yokai and Mononoke is kind of like it's like a catch-all for supernatural being. Mm-hmm. And so when you think of the Nightwalker as more of a god of death, or like the other side of the coin, where the Shishigami is life, the Nightwalker is death.
Yeah.
But that's so much, that's giving it so much more than it sort of like traditionally has. The similarity kind of stops at like, it's a giant. Like that's it. Other than that, it's they're really not related at all. I mean, like you could literally just look up the Wikipedia, and it's like this like goofy cross-eyed thing like behind a mountain. Like that's where the Dairarabochi is traditionally. But then, same as with Spirited Away, he kind of takes all these things and he creates these new spirits and gods to suit his own needs. And he did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, as I was watching this, I was so thankful that gods don't exist in the world that we live in, because these things are fucking terrifying. And if you saw one out in the woods and you're just like on a hike or something and you just walk in and you run into like a boar god, that thing is massive. And just, I would
I've heard that like normal boar will fuck you up.
Boar will fuck you up.
I think in Australia, they're like, if you see a boar, it's like you're ordered to kill it or something, because they're wild in certain parts of it.
Oh, they so if you Google like wild boar in like Japanese elementary school, like you'll find I forget where it was, but there were like 2 wild boar which like came into an elementary school, and they basically evacuated. Like even in Japan, like a boar will fuck you up. Really. So actually, when you think about it, like a vengeful boar god is terrifying, because you've already got boar, and then you've got giant, and then you've got supernatural, and then you've got pissed off.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I for me, I think one of the scenes that always hits me the hardest whenever I watch Princess Mononoke is watching Okoto when he's been injured beyond belief, and his hate noodles are starting to form. And
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and he's blind, and he's walking through the forest and bleeding everywhere. And San is trying to help him, and he usually figures things out by his sense of smell. And then there's men wearing the skins of his like freshly dead warriors. And
oh my god, the way they like slither over the rocks and shit, like to this day is terrifying.
It is so creepy. And then there's just this huge dramatic irony that I just think is like hits you so hard when you see that Okoto is like, my warriors have returned from the dead. We will charge. Like he still has this idea in his head that they're going to survive, and his tribe's literally just been wiped out, and he's the last one, and quickly developing danger noodles.
Yeah.
Another really heartbreaking thing about it that to me just kind of screams nihilism is when San is trying to help him, and then he kind of stumbles and he knocks her down, and you get this impression that what she's trying to help him towards is a really nihilistic goal. Like, where is he going, and what effect is he going to have there? so it's this like she's trying really hard to help him do something that means nothing and will go nowhere. And I think that that's part of that dramatic irony and that sort of nihilistic, like pessimistic thing. And you're just like, wow, Miyazaki, why'd you have to go that hard?
Well, it is, yeah, it's totally heartbreaking. And I mean, like, it's great, but I was thinking about it earlier today. I'm like, it's a little on the nose because so in Buddhism, there are three poisons in the center of the wheel of life. And it's a snake, a bird, and a pig. And a pig represents ignorance.
Mm.
And I'm like, a blind boar god. That's a little on the nose, isn't it? That's a little.
Well, I think that Miyazaki has a thing for pigs because I think there's like pigs in every one of his movies.
He draws himself as a pig too, which is like super telling,
Yeah.
because it has this like strong significance and like, and it's interesting actually when you think about it in terms of Marco from Porco Rosso.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that he draws himself that way is like, are you okay, Miyazaki?
Yeah.
Is everything all right?
I remember being like obsessed with the Kodama when I first watched this movie.
They're so cute.
And
I love
I
them.
forgot how little they do because there's such an emblem of this movie in my mind. And then when you watch it
They're like
again,
the soot sprites of this movie.
Yeah.
Like they're adorable and they're, good for merchandising.
they are great for merchandising.
Yeah, but they don't do like as soon as they showed up on screen, I was like, oh, the most inconsequential characters in this movie.
It's the cute tax.
Yeah.
But they've got kind of an ugly cute thing going on.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also, as sort of, I do like the idea that they are sort of indicators of a healthy forest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you, and then spoiler alert, there's a Kodama at the end. But no, so when the Kodama appears at the end, it's in a way it's its own like personification of the forest, more so than the gods are.
I was gonna say it also signals, like I know that we were talking about how this one's kind of the most pessimistic Miyazaki movie, but that shot of the Caderna, did I say that right? Kodama, damn it. Caderna is the name of a guy that I know from Baltimore. Oh God, Kodama. When he shows up, like I feel like that's a hopeful message of like, oh, it's going to heal itself. Like I know that it's kind of like we end with Ashitaka and San being at odds still. Like San's like, hey, I'm going to try and kill that lady, and Ashitaka's like, I'll be right there and I'll come visit, but I won't allow you to do that. It's like we're just going to be rivals till the end. It's like Batman and the Joker type of shit.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot like that.
I don't quite like that. Not quite. Heath Ledger would make a terrible Son.
Yeah, that would be pretty awful.
And it's a far more adult anime than most of the other stuff he's done. One of the books I'm reading is called "The Petals Fall but the Flower Endures." And I think that's actually a really good way to like sum up this movie, especially when you think about what's happening at the forest is, it dies, but then this Kodama that appears at the end like tells you that there's this sense of an endurance that though it has died, the forest can live on.
Yeah, I think, watching all the sort of Kodama rain through the sky and, there's like flames behind Lady Eboshi. Yeah, like that's another like really evocative image. But, it's really interesting how this film kind of seems to be going in a direction and then it kind of, swerves sideways where, in most animated films, if the forest god lost his head and they were trying to get it back, they'd get it back and they'd get it back in time. Or there'd be one more step to it to be like, oh no, there's one more other thing that we need to do to actually get this done, but it would get done. And then, the characters...
Sorry, Mario, but the forest god's head is in another castle.
yeah. And then, your, potential love interest that you're kind of trying to build up in the end, they're like, hey, we kind of want different things. We should probably not do this. And they're like, yeah, and they go their separate ways. Like both of those things are so like anti-animated movie. And I kind of love that.
Yeah.
I feel like this one, the love story also kind of just gets thrown in there as well.
I kind of like, though, that there's some outside forces that are kind of like, you know, it's mainly Moro who's doing the mom thing of being like, you know, I think that boy wants to spend the rest of his life with you. And it's like, Mom, you know, and like that kind of happens a couple times. But, you know, like neither San or Ashitaka, neither of them really react to it. You know, you get that sort of like, no, I don't. I can't believe you said that, you know, sort of thing in anime a lot. And both of them kind of shrug it off, which I think is kind of realistic.
Like we've got more important things to deal with. There's a wild giant boar with danger noodles coming at us. Like we'll talk about whether we're going to smooch later.
And I kind of feel like Moro hasn't seen her human daughter like be around a suitable bachelor either. She's mainly just trying to kill humans all the time. So you could kind of see how Mora would go like, I think he wants to spend forever with you just because they have a civil conversation and like sleep next to each other.
And if he doesn't, I'm going to bite his head off. Like all of the wolves are always talking. I do like that all of the animals that are around Ashitaka are like talking about like, so when can we eat him? When can I bite his head off? It's just like,
I'd
geez.
say at least twice.
A little taste for the old long pork, as it were.
At least twice the gods say like, I'm not going to eat you now, but next time I see you, I will kill you.
Yeah. Ashitaka gets banished from everywhere he goes.
Everywhere. Oh my God. Can we talk about how he manages to like keep his head up despite the fact that banished from all of the places.
Yeah, that he's like totally lost his identity as like a leader within his slowly declining clan.
And yet he seems to step up as a leader in every situation he gets himself into.
Yeah.
You know, usually when people are like that lost, they act, you know, a little less sure of themselves and ready to tell everybody else what's right.
But it's so funny because Ashitaka, at the beginning of the movie, when he gets the curse on his arm or whatever, he gets banished from his village. Then he goes to that next village and everyone's always suspicious of him. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing here? They run him off because they want to rob him for his gold. Then he goes to the forests and they're like, get the fuck out of here. He goes to the iron place. They're like, get the fuck out of here. He goes back to the forest and they're like, if you come here again, I'll fucking kill you. Then he goes back to the iron and like everyone's trying to kill this dude throughout the entire movie.
Maybe
and he's like, guys, can we just calm down, put our swords away for 1 second?
It's even more tragic though, not even just that he's been like, again, this is sort of like a beef with the translation I have based on having read what other people have said, not that I am an expert on any of this, aspiring expert. But the, you know, it's like he very selflessly and consciously leaves his village. And one of the things he does is, you know, you see him cut off his bun. So he has the Miyazaki bob, which all of his female characters have for some fucking reason. like in Howl when what's her face, Sophie cuts off her hair. I'm like, oh, now she has the Miyazaki bob. Okay.
It's probably easier to animate.
You're right.
So when Ashitaka cuts off his bun and he ends up with a Miyazaki bob, same haircut as San. It's weird. It's actually like this this performative act of giving up his identity as a amishi. So it's not even like they're like, you got cursed, get the fuck out. It's like, well, I got cursed, so I guess like for the good of my people, I'll have to like shed my identity and like leave this all behind.
Now, I don't know if this was different in the American dub because in the dub, it's the wise woman of the village that tells him that he needs to leave. And she says, this will kill you and you need to leave the village. Like you're banished. Yeah. So that, I mean, and obviously he still goes willingly, but it's really a strong suggestion on her part.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Toki a little bit? Because our introduction to Toki is so brutal towards her husband.
Again, like super gender bending.
She's so cute.
She like this guy. Everybody thinks that he's dead, and then he's like, Toki, my wife, I'm back. And she's like, I wish the wolves would have eaten you. You're fucking worthless. Look at you're injured and all this stuff. And then she immediately starts flirting with Ashitaka. Like, wow, you're fucking hot. It's just like, God. And she's like that.
Ashitaka's 16 also, so easy there, Toki.
But she's like that through the whole movie. She's also a boss. Because she's kind of like the leader of the like brothel women, the women that were saved from the brothel by Eboshi.
Toki is middle management. She's Lady Eboshi's direct report.
Yeah, but then like she just gives her husband so much unwarranted shit. It's just so funny to me.
And I think that is like the main comic relief of this film because it doesn't let up a lot, and it's some of it's so shocking, some of the things that she says, especially you don't expect women to speak like that, especially in sort of something that's kind of a period piece, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like keeps adding on. And I think it's got this great kind of shock factor that you just can't help but laugh. I mean, and if you thought about it more, you'd feel terrible for this poor man. It's just like with such an abusive woman.
I just love how he comes home and like everyone thought he was dead, and her first words to him were like, I wish you would have fucking gotten eaten by the wolves. And he's like, honey?
Yeah, and he's like,
wait, what did she actually say? Because I feel like it wasn't quite that harsh when
in the dub he says, Sweetums, can we talk about this later?
Yeah.
Oh my God. If someone called me Sweetums, I'd murder them too.
Yeah, but like all of his guy friends are laughing at him like, ha ha, you're in trouble. You're in the doghouse, buddy, because you almost died.
I mean, and like one of her last lines in the film is saying like, "Oh, brother, why do I love this guy so much?" You know, so she obviously does love him, but you wouldn't guess it. But it'd be really interesting to see what it actually said in Japanese, because I wonder if it's
because I know for a fact in the dub she did say like we probably would have been better off if the wolves ate you or something, or you would have been better off. And that's why I was like, damn, dude. That's fucking...
And then when she says to Ashitaka, you know, she's like, oh, looks like you might be handsome under that mask. And he takes it off and she's like, you're not handsome. You're gorgeous. Yeah. And I was like, lady,
man, this guy's
chill
getting
out.
Well, it's also funny because like all of the brothel women seem sick of all of the men in that town. They're just like, oh, there's fresh meat here. As soon as Ashitaka shows up, they're just like, oh, look at this guy. Why don't you come and see where we work, honey? Yeah, right? And then he's like, okay, I would like to. And they're like, oh.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's really, really cool to see how the background is animated so carefully. Like every single person in that village is animated separately, and all of the kodama are animated separately and, you know, have their own sort of look about them. But there's something about the brothel women of Irontown that had the same energy as like the little girls in Porco Rosso around the pirates.
Yeah.
But like grown up.
Yeah.
But it's that like clucking hens, like.
Yeah, they're like the age of the pirates now, and Ashitaka is the age of the little girl.
All right, so confirmed in the in the sub they also say like the wolf should have eaten you, but she proceeds it with saying like you scared me half to death.
Oh. Yeah,
I think that she does say that.
Does she?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. It seemed like she just started going in real hard.
But I was like, this is such a Rosie O'Donnell character. Like she had like this weird New York accent for some reason. Like, get me a fucking sub.
Yeah. In the Spanish dub, she's like, pinche away.
I'm walking here, Ashitaka. Give me a coffee.
Yeah, the women have a really interesting role in this. So, you know, the fact that they work and it's like this much more egalitarian setup. There were two things I thought were really funny though. One was that people were talking about like the sort of like less maternal instincts for San and Eboshi. And then I'm like, okay, But you realize like she has no preconceptions of like gender socialization because she was raised by wolves.
Yeah. Very true.
Where was she going to get this from?
Yeah, she's not rejecting the popular cultural idea of what her gender should be embodied as.
Yeah.
She's doing wolf things. You know?
Exactly.
Pants are probably harder to make than a skirt, you know?
Well, I just love that our introduction to her basically is her sucking blood out of the wolf's chest. It's just like, wow, this is a feral woman.
Yeah.
Like, this is not like some
Pretty
cutesy.
badass.
Yeah, I mean, and the blood's all over her face. She like spits it into a lake. I'm like, whoa, that is not.
Like wipes it on her sleeve.
Yeah.
Yeah, Son is some serious fuck around and find out energy.
Oh, for sure.
I have a question about Jiko, or what is it? Jikobo?
Jacoba.
What is his motives? He wants to kill the forest spirit. I know that much, but why? Just because it would be legendary of him to do, or does he get money for it or
He's
something?
a mercenary.
Yeah.
If
I know
recall
that
correctly.
he's
I think it's like a
See, I know that he's a mercenary, but like, who hired him to kill the forest spirit?
I kind of thought it was Lord
is he-
Asano
I think he's part of like some
or
weird
the Emperor.
Oh yeah, because he does have that letter from the emperor that excuses him for beheading the forest spirit. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay.
And he gets Lady Eboshi on board with his plan as well.
Yeah, because she hates
Yeah.
the forest spirits as well, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or whatever.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that you have, Ashitaka finding out about Lord Asano's samurai attacking Irontown, and before Eboshi seemed so freaking concerned about the guns being too heavy for the delicate ladies. And then when Ashitaka is like, the women are going to die, like the village is being attacked. And then she's like, they can handle themselves. Like, what? How do you...
Has he even seen their glutes and hamstrings from like working those bellows? Like
Yeah.
they're probably just like pure muscle, like maybe just from the waist down. Maybe they don't have a lot of upper body strength, but like if they were handling those muskets with their feet and legs, I mean,
Dude, we actually brought that up while we were watching it.
That was literally a joke I made while we were watching it. Yeah.
Because she was concerned about how heavy they were. I was like, she could get those girls to do the bellows with their hands then, or something, instead of their legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got them stronger.
yeah, they actually skip arm day, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully they switch off those legs. Otherwise, they're just gonna have one massively jacked
I was
leg.
thinking the same thing when I was watching it today.
And terrible back problems.
For sure.
Really unbalanced sacrum.
100% uneven as fuck.
End of this movie, we kind of touched on it, but I think it's really, really interesting. So we have the head of the forest god is with Lady Eboshi and Chikobo. And they're running away. The now what did you call the like night walker?
Daidarabochi.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
Is headless and looking for the head, so is sending danger juice into the forest.
Yeah, he mad.
He real mad.
He big mad.
He big mad.
Yeah, I feel like it's not a movie about good and evil as it is a movie about mad.
Oh,
Like,
for
this is a black
sure.
and white. It's just a movie about being mad.
Yeah. Real accurate. And in the end, they can't save the forest god. They're able to just about get it back, but they're too late. They just, where most films, they'd get it right before the cutoff, they get it right after the cutoff. And so it doesn't matter. And this sort of wave goes across the entire forest of, I don't know, god juice, whatever.
Gross.
Whatever you might call his essence, his or her essence.
His godly gushers.
Yeah.
Why'd you make it grosser, Tierney?
And so you're seeing a ton of stuff die, and there's this moment of like existential angst where it's like, wait, but if that spirit isn't there anymore, then what's happening? How can all the gods die? And then you start to see bits of growth around the forest. There is kind of a forced moment with Lady Eboshi being like, I think I'll do better.
Yeah.
Be better, Lady
Do better,
Eboshi.
Lady Eboshi.
Yeah.
That's how she avoids. Anyway, yeah. So my interpretation of that is if you look at the forest god, and I think maybe Danny Cavallaro said the same thing: is it's not a matter of like he's dead; it's a matter of death and rebirth.
Mhm.
Right.
Because when you look at him, he's got basically like a big white beard. He's got a fuck ton of antlers, and I think he's supposed to look like he's quite old. So you think of it almost
He didn't grow
sort
those
of
antlers
like,
overnight.
no. But then I think of it, it's almost like, I think the same way we think about like Father Time, like dies on your birthday, as it turns out, and then is reborn as like Baby New Year.
Right.
So I think of like, at this point, maybe the Shishigami is like just like a little baby.
Oh, that would be
Creepy
cute.
little human face baby
Little
deer.
baby Groot.
Yeah, because I like that idea. I also think that, there's that last shot of the Kodama walking out of the forest and, breaking the fourth wall, just looking you right in the eye through that camera lens and doing his little clicky head thing. I think that there's obviously kind of a hopeful message with that. And I think that I wondered if it's kind of like, oh, there's a little bit of the forest spirit now in everything, that everything has a little bit of that. And that's part of why there was kind of things growing again. But it's like, the spirit is still there, but now it's not as one being, it's part of everything.
Well, you recall what Chidi says in the last episode of The Good Place, which I definitely did not cry through basically the whole time. He talks about the idea that, this idea of impermanence again, where like you have a wave that's an individual wave, and then it recedes back into the ocean and becomes part of the whole again. And I think that's sort of a take it for granted in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'm gonna try not to think about that series finale anymore now.
I know that gave me some chills thinking about the wave thing.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's
yeah.
beautiful, but that's sort of a basic tenet of how they think of life and death in this film.
Well, I took kind of a similar thing to what you guys were talking about with that scene in particular, about like once they take the head of the forest spirit, it will basically just do whatever it can to get it back. It's like, no, I'm getting this head back. Like, I'll fuck up this whole forest and fuck everyone up.
And anybody who touches it dies.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of this George Carlin bit where he was talking about like the environment and how everybody needs to recycle. And he's like, yeah, there's problems with the environment, but it's not the environment that's fucked. It's us. Like, we're fucked. Like, the earth is going to be just fine. He's like, the earth is going to be going on long, long after we're gone. And he's like, and everyone's worried about plastic. He's like, the earth will probably just make it a part of the earth. And it's like, it's going to evolve and everything's going to change. And along with that theme of impermanence of like, it's going to be around way long after we're gone. And then even it will be gone once fucking the sun explodes or whatever. And your guys' conversation about that kind of reminded me of that, of like, yeah.
The core nihilism of
yeah.
Okay. Carlin has his very nihilistic tendencies as well. So.
As most legends in the arts do.
Yeah.
I think this is a really nice place to kind of end on and wrap this up, but wanted to open up the floor to any final thoughts or comments if there's anything you guys feel like we didn't really touch on.
Let me just look through.
No, Tierney, put it down. Put the notebook down.
I got a quick one. I thought Yakul was really fucking cute and adorable.
Oh, I can't believe we didn't talk about
adorable.
Yakul.
Yakul is the goat.
Yeah.
And then when he gets shot in the butt, made me so sad.
I was so sad. And actually really tiny scene that was totally unnecessary but so impactful is when Ashitaka tells Yakul to stay after he's been shot in the butt, and he's like, stay, you can't follow me. And then Yakul is like limping after him, and Ashitaka is like, oh, okay, and like goes back and gets him and then takes him. And I was just like, oh, my heart.
Yeah.
I actually have a bit of trivia for this.
Oh,
Okay.
trivia.
Did you know this is the only Miyazaki film that contains no scenes of flying?
Whoa.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, this is a very grounded film, except limbs.
Yeah. Limbs
I'd argue limbs
Yeah,
fly.
limbs- Yeah, I guess you could
Heads
say there are a lot of.
will fly.
Yeah,
That is
but no,
interesting.
but there's like no flying machines, no.
That is a
Yeah, I
very,
have a lot.
very good fucking trivia, Tierney. That's
I
fucking
thought,
great.
yeah, that was from Cavallaro. She. Yeah, sorry. I'm just like, is there anything else that I like really feel like I need to say
Yeah.
aside from apes, creepy.
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
my
the apes
God,
were
yeah.
creepy.
They're horrifying.
Give us the
Yeah.
human. We will
Although I'd almost
eat
like-
him.
I always like to know more though. Like, you sort of see them and they're sort of just like mindlessly angry.
And they're starting to use
But-
tools, which is alarming.
This is true. This is true. Well, you can think about like monkeys imitating things, and when they talk about like eating him to like gain his powers,
Yeah.
some big King Louis energy,
There's some big
very uncomfortable. I don't know. Oh, I was thinking though when I watched earlier, I'd forgotten that like in that same scene when you see Hassan's riding one of the wolves, like the apes are all there with their red eyes, and the wolves' eyes are like glowing green, and I'm like, is that like a red lightsaber, green lightsaber thing we got going there?
Oh.
A port and starboard. front of a
Yeah,
ship.
Exactly.
I think
Um,
in that scene when when Ashitaka falls off the back of Yakul because he's been shot through, and one of the wolves pounces on him, grabs him by the head, and shakes real fast, which is just a thing that dogs do, and the way it's animated
like
is
so-
absolutely perfect, and that for some reason makes me laugh every time. Like, it's a horrifying idea, but
It's
every
so
time it makes me
comical.
laugh, right? Yeah.
It's
There's
so
some weird
comical.
dark comedy in this.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the limbs and like all of the animals wanting to eat Ashitaka.
Yeah.
Just all of them are like, yo, give them to us. I want to eat him. Like the apes want to eat him, the wolves want to eat him, the boars want to eat him. I'm surprised that like the forest
The
spirit when
women in Irontown want to eat him.
Oh, they want to eat him
They're,
up.
they're
Eat
like,
him up.
Ashitaka is a snack.
He isn't a snack, he's a whole damn meal.
a 16-year-old meal.
Oh, so I actually had a quote from Miyazaki that's in the Cavallaro book, and basically he says that like the film's like darkness is about being like brutally honest to children, and that's like
Ooh.
where that lack of levity comes from. So the abridged quote I had is like, human society is not fundamentally blessed. This is the world we all leave children and adults that we share in this despair.
Holy shit.
Like,
Bet you Miyazaki's not doing Santa Claus for his kids.
no.
I
This is
bought
like
these.
he's-
There's no magic.
No, and he's feeling like, and this is even before the Iraq War when he like boycotted the Oscars that he won.
Yeah.
He's already like in the late 90s. He's just like, fuck everything.
Yeah.
It means that, yeah, Miyazaki was going through his angsty high school period, I guess. Like, oh, and the other thing was, so I was talking about the historical background of this. So it's set in the Muromachi period when Japan was still a nation of warring tribes. Like I said, Ashitaka was part of the Emishi, which was one of the tribes resisting imperial rule. But the other thing that's really important, and why Miyazaki probably said it during this time, is in addition to this idea of transition, and it is a time when women had a lot more autonomy and a lot more freedom within like these specific societies.
Okay, so that might be
so it
why
makes
he
a lot more sense.
gave Toki such lip.
But yeah, so he saw this as like a time that was like more fluid, and where change and chaos were the norm. And I put quotes around that, so I don't know if he said that or Cavallaro said that.
Mm.
But I didn't say it. It's not me.
Well, now you
Somebody
said it.
said it.
Somebody did. I'm giving them credit. I'll have footnotes. Available.
We'll have a fan subtitle for this episode.
Yeah, we'll have fan
We'll have
subs in the
5
show
pages.
notes.
Cultural notes. I will say
Perfect.
too, like I am doing my best to understand all of this, and if any of your Legion of listeners is like, Jesus Christ, this bitch is so wrong. Please let me know. I would rather be corrected than just be called an idiot behind my back. Tell me to my
don't
face.
tell her. She'll take it very personally.
I'm working on that.
All right. Shall we get to cranking the amps? This is with the rating portion of it, Tierney, where we give our number out of 11 and our like last thoughts and like reasoning why. I know that you already alluded to your number, so.
Well, now that we've had this discussion, I'm up to a 14.
14 out of 11, folks. This is an anime movie podcast first.
I'm breaking new ground. No, and why is because I just think it's like Miyazaki at his best. Any of the things that I feel like are failings in previous films aren't in this film. And I like the sense of despair. I like the nihilism. I like the difficult honesty about it. I like the epic fantasy nature of it, and I like the gender bending, and I like the ambiguity of between good and evil, and even with the gods. I would recommend at some point, Joe, you at least watch part of the subtitle version so you could see Moro's voice, which is done by total badass who was like very early like queer actress in Japan, was a drag queen and all this other stuff. But it ties it in this like really beautiful way that I can't quite put my finger on.
I feel
so
like
anyway, 14 out of 10 on the sub, 14 out of 11 on the sub, 10 out of 11 on the dub. So like still very strong, but carried by Gillian Anderson.
I read a thing that said that Moro's voice in the Japanese version is voiced by a man who is okay.
He was a drag queen.
Yeah, he was a drag queen performer.
Okay.
All around, like really, really interesting person.
Okay, yeah, because apparently, like that person, it was the voice of several female, quote unquote, female characters in all of anime. So that was kind of like that person's wheelhouse. Yeah,
I'd kind of like to piggyback on Tierney's response on this, because it's a 10 out of 11 for me on the dub as well. And you know, a lot of the things that you hit, Tierney, are definitely the sort of buttons it pushed that were the right ones for me as well. I think this film's a little long. I think it's just I don't think that 2 hours and 13 minutes is the hot ticket. You know, I'm really, really glad that when this got distributed, they didn't cut it down. Because I like that they tried to stay true to the original to some extent. But I think that after watching it for like the 15th time in my life, like it drags in a
That's
couple
a lot
of
coming from a Lord of the Rings fan.
All right, you heard it here first, everybody. Kat agrees with Harvey Weinstein.
Wow.
Thinks
Tierney,
it could
are
have
you
been
going to let him
shorter.
speak to your little sister like that? Stand up for me. I can't do it myself.
I don't know that she agrees.
Tierney is shocked as well. She can't believe that you agree with Harvey Weinstein either. Do you need to have a katana sent to you that says no cuts? If you had to chop off anything, what would you cut off, though? What would you take out to make it shorter?
Honestly, I think there's...
Or do you think that they should just talk faster?
I think there's a couple of scenes that linger a little bit. And, you know, again, I think it's a great movie. Like, it's a 10 out of 11 for me.
Mm-hmm.
But... especially in the end when the Shishigami is looking for
Chidi-gami.
What?
I was thinking of Chidi from The Good Place again.
Yeah. I was
Chidi-gami.
She's like, was Ryuk in this movie from Death Note?
So far, I've hated this section with me rating it. Thanks, guys.
You and I would cut most of my commentary through this whole thing. I mean, just take a reason to it. I really went on.
The Shishigami looking for its head that's going on for a long time. And I understand that it needs to kind of build to this moment where that it kind of loses steam. And I think because of the fact that it is such a letdown, it almost feels like, well, I've just been watching that for a while and it
That's fair.
failed,
That's fair.
And I think that in some ways that can also add to the sort of nihilistic sort of points that the movie's making. And I think, what I said at the beginning, that was a D story with some of the feudal lord situations and the samurai that could kind of be lost. I now understand that that's trying to bring it into the time period. And
Yeah, but like, how are we going to know that, right? Like, I didn't even know that until I was doing my background reading on this, and I was like doing my reading ahead of taking notes ahead of this. I was like, oh, interesting. Oh shit, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I mean, it's kind of like if the samurai weren't there, and weren't attacking the women in Irontown, not much changes. I mean, yeah, the men go back to Irontown because of it, but then Ashitaka is looking for Lady Eboshi, finally finds her and says, hey, you need to go back to Irontown because it's being attacked. And Lady Eboshi goes, nah.
yeah,
And he could have been looking for Lady Eboshi because he knew that she was a danger to the forest, and he was just trying to stop that. And that would have cut a good 15 minutes out of the film that I think would have been totally fine, personally.
He could have been looking for her because she left her cell phone.
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
dropped her wallet,
Her Ralph's card.
lost her car keys.
Yeah. All right, Joe.
yeah. I'm also going to crank I'm going to crank it to 10 as well.
Oh, nice.
And I agree a lot with what both of you have said. Like, in terms of what I would cut, it would be the samurai stuff. Like, I feel like that was kind of the least consequential of the movie, and you could definitely, like, in order to figure out what was actually going on, you have to do homework in order to do that.
And the stakes didn't really feel that real, or you didn't feel invested in the stakes of that situation.
Yeah. But
Well, we could have done the additional 45 minutes, like including the samurai. No, I that was actually supposed to be a joke that fell flat in his face. I'm done.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Please continue.
But yeah, like I said earlier, I think I said it in the non-spoiler section, but I think this is Miyazaki's best nuanced telling of his like environmental stuff, because the thing that really annoys me a lot in Miyazaki movies is to like hit you over the head with, oh, humans are destroying the environment. Like, there's literally lines in some of his movies that are like, it's happening because of the humans and we don't take care of the planet and stuff like that, which I'm always like, it feels kind of lectury at certain points, and especially in movies that aren't about that. But this movie is like kind of all about that, and I respect it more, and it's a lot more nuanced, and it's more like we have to kind of be in this together, so we might as well try and make the best of it and like work together, like with the environment and the spirits of the forest and everything, and we need to be mindful of the environment. But
yeah, and I wonder if it's less about the destruction of the environment and more a destruction of spirituality.
Well, I don't give a fuck about
It
spirituality.
leads hard into ambiguity.
Yeah.
But I feel like this was the most nuanced approach that he had, and I really enjoyed it. And I was trying to think of something that I didn't like about it, but like it all pretty much holds up, except for like I do agree with Harvey Weinstein that it was a little bit long.
Oh, you agree with Harvey Weinstein, do you?
That it could be a little shorter, but it didn't. I don't know. It wasn't offensively long. It wasn't like 3 hours, which would be a little.
Was it like
ridiculous.
Return of the King extended cut?
I don't know. I don't like Lord of the Rings. I watched the first one. I was like, all right, I'm good on this. But yeah, 10 out of 11 from me as well.
Wow, Triforce of 10s out of 11s.
But yeah, that's the episode for Princess Mononoke. Tierney, thank you so much for coming and doing the show. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us.
My pleasure.
It was good. You had some great enlightening commentary and enlightening knowledge about the movie and Japanese culture that we were definitely not privy to.
Yeah, that
This is kind of when I man in the when I man in the Kingdom of the Blind. So I know a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super helpful giving us a kind of lens to look through on some of those issues that were a little less clear. So really, really appreciate your contributions, and thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
All right, now it's plug time. Follow us on Instagram at The Anime Movie Podcast. If you want to reach us, theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just look up The Anime Movie Podcast. We post the whole episodes and little fun mini clips from the episodes that are animated. And sometimes there's some YouTube exclusive content. Whoa. And I think that's it. Yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.